Maybe I'm just the pessimist. Maybe that's just how I am, but I just don't see it. Now this is so, mysticism in a sense is a search for truth.
Right. Very much so. That's absolutely what it is. Yes.
So let's start. Let's explain to the audience what it is to be a mystic or to be into mysticism, because we need to learn how to explore truths. Maybe mysticism is a way.
Oh, it
so
absolutely is. Out of body travel is a key. It's a tool. A lot of people don't realize. We use certain tools to seek the truth. When we go out of body, we are accessing a higher spiritual sphere wherein we can be instructed, taught, and taken through many types of initiations into higher and higher consciousness. And a big part of this process is also this purification process that I discuss in my books, and was also very much covered in the recent film, The Grand Phases of the Soul, which was produced by Brian Malum of Mysteries Productions, and also The Stairway from Earth to Heaven, where we talk about this purification journey and the gift of the ancient sacred texts, which to us are the words left behind by the great masters before they graduated this realm. So their words that they left behind, these are gold. This is the gold of the human race that we seek. Ironically, in a lot of my out-of-body travels, I am directed to various ancient sacred texts to study, because there are many aspects of our journey that we will traverse through if we begin to have a mystical adventure, a spiritual path that we begin to follow. And so a lot of people see out-of-body travel as being more of something that can be fun, or it's neat, and they think of it in the earthbound sense of seeing your body, or maybe having some interesting adventures, but they don't necessarily always realize that out-of-body travel goes well beyond that. This is where we become capable of traveling forward and backwards in time. We are able to have our past lives revealed to us. We go back and re-experience them. And we also go into the depths of our own soul, the things that we actually incarnated here this time to overcome. And because that is the actual purpose of a mortal realm, a purgatorial realm, it is the purification of the dark elements within our soul to bring them forward into the light. This is actually one of the most efficacious things that we can be doing while incarnate here on Earth. It's a very important path. And so, out-of-body travel and the mystical gift is a tool to the truth. It's not the truth itself. It's a tool that gives us that inside view and allows us to undergo what will become, for all who follow the out-of-body travel path, a very vibrational journey, because you learn very early on that knowledge is not words or thoughts or things like that. Knowledge is vibration. And as we move through the out-of-body travel states, we will have our vibrations raised and brought up higher. And that will be a continuum that follows us through our journeys, no matter how far we go, because our knowledge is quickened and made greater by vibration going higher. So once we understand that, and we're able to allow these processes to occur, we become much more receptive and much more able to do things within the universal consciousness of all life that actually push towards the goodness and the light. And so, each of us has that individual ability to actually impact and affect these things that are happening in vibration all around us by literally undergoing our own personal purification. That's how powerful out of body travel can be. And that's what we teach at the foundation. We have all our books are available for free download. We have a whole slew of things that get people started. And as I mentioned before, we have a lot of people that come to my foundation just interested in out of body travel who within a short period of time become very profound mystics themselves. So, we have this group and forum of people that are then, learning how they become, impactors in the vibration of this realm and doing things and working within the spheres of evolution to help alter how things might come about for the realm, but also for individuals, because we do a lot of work in the out of body travel state to assist ourselves, but also to assist others with, individual problems, individual difficulties, and all these kinds of things. And this is how one of the things I was told early on was, creation continues to create. This is one of the ways that creation continues to create, by all of us going in and doing the work of this mortal life, this mortal incarnation. And there is such power when we all understand. And as, a grouping of people, we come forward and we enter into that process and do the work. Because when we do, it not only causes this severe and serious transformation within us individually, it puts us in the position where we become a point of light for all life on this planet and in this whole wide universe. It changes everything, and we learn how the things that we do, the things that we think, the things that we spend our time doing can actually become profitable, not just for ourselves, but for the realm. And when I say profitable, I'm talking about spiritual merit, spiritual goodness.
Oh, you're not talking about money? Come on.
Yes.
Oh, wait, I thought this is a get rich quick scheme. Dang it. This is a question here from Lori here. She said, being a mystic, another word for medium?
It's a different thing. A mystic is someone who has these experiences where they travel through the multidimensional universe. They travel, different mystics will have different callings, but like in my case, I experience an infinite number of heavens, purgatories, and hells. I travel in all of them because I'm expected to work within the purgatorial realms and the hell realms to help other souls, because souls higher than us are helping me. So I have to do the same. A medium is someone who communicates primarily with the spirits of the deceased.
Right.
A mystic does often have certain gifts, and I sometimes have that. It's not like a medium may have a much more acute awareness of the communication with the living and the dead. In my case, I will have experiences like that, but only when God so wills, if I'm in a situation where it is called for. So it's a little different in that regard. But my work is done when I am unconscious, my body is unconscious, my soul awakens and it leaves the body, and I'm working in a myriad of realms, not just the astral plane that surrounds the earth, but literally an infinite number of places. We don't realize how much is really out there. We don't realize that when St. Paul said that eye has not seen nor ear heard what God has prepared for those who love him, we don't realize what that really means until we begin to see the beauty and the the way that the universe moves is something that really fits into those words that he said, but it's something that's very hard for people to really envision. But what I am here to tell people is that there is expanded beauty available to all of us, and there is this accelerated path, because it accelerates, because what happens is we are drawn then into what is called energetic truth and eternal law. And so we are now being taken into the vibration of our own actions, of our own deeds. And we have this immediate understanding of what needs to be altered, changed, and purified. And so this is a huge acceleration that occurs when a soul enters into a purification journey through out-of-body travel, because we literally are taught by God. So it's very different from being a medium. They're both spiritual gifts. The medium is primarily focused on the living and the dead, but a mystic is actually someone who travels to many, many worlds and interacts with many heavenly beings, many angels, many spiritual teachers and masters and ascended, beautiful, beautiful things. But we also, some of us also are called to travel into purgatorial and lower hellish realms, because
Why would you want to go there?
well, it's not always a matter of personal choice. In fact, most mystics are very resistant to it when it is presented to them. But we are taken there because souls in lower realms also evolve. And whenever a soul simply calls out to God and says, "Help me," God sends help. And that is when someone like myself and others like me will immediately be sent in to offer whatever efficacious knowledge or information that person may require where they are. So, in these lower realms, people are very attached to whatever their vice might be, because they're in a hell realm that is compatible to their vice. And every vice has innumerable types of hellish realms as well as purgatorial realms, and we've all traveled them. And so because we are receiving from beings who are much higher than us, who really don't want to travel into the mortal realms either, but they do it as a service to God, because creation continues to create. We must serve evolution. So they are serving evolution by all the guidance that they give to me. And I must in turn serve evolution by going in, and as the Holy Spirit directs me, to assist and ascend other souls who are struggling either in purgatorial, which is purification realms, or hellish realms, where souls are actually more attached and stuck with their vice. But literally, this is so important for people to know. The moment a soul calls out to God, God sends help. And that's what people like
I
myself will
experienced
do.
that. You kind of give me
Have you?
goosebumps when you say that, because
Mhm.
I say that I experienced that because growing up, I still am agnostic in the sense that I question maybe what God is. I believe in a God. I was trying to explain this to my 9-year-old. Who's like, "Well, you don't believe in God?" And I'm like, "Well, I believe in the Force." Star Wars
Okay.
here. I believe in an existence, a will, a force. I don't picture God like, because it was my 4-year-old that started the conversation, because he thought the Santa Claus figurine was like, "That's God, Santa Claus." I'm like, "No, that's."
No,
I'm
that's
like, I don't
actually
think God's
based
a guy
on
with a
Saint
beard.
Nicholas. Well,
Yeah,
Santa Claus was actually a saint, a Catholic saint,
I've
Saint
explained that
Nicholas.
to him. But
Yeah.
he sees God as a guy with a beard. He's already my 4-year-old already sees God as a guy with a beard in the clouds, and I'm like,
Well,
I personally
that's
don't see God
normal.
as that way. I don't see God as like an entity sitting on a throne somewhere. I see God as a force, a will, be it love, be it creation. That's just how I felt. But I had a moment where I was being, I've talked about on the show plenty of times, written about it. Paranormal Encounters, Mike Rickseker's book, volume 2, written about it there. My shadow person experience, and that ended the night when this thing really attacked me. It levitated me up off my bed 3 times, pulled me up and threw me down. The third time it had me up in the air, was about ready to throw me down. I was like, "God, please help me. God, I am so sorry. God, help me." Because I knew I brought it upon myself. And
Yeah.
I just knew down deep that it was my fault. And I asked God at that moment to help me. And I think a deceased relative showed up in that room at that moment, because I saw him.
Yes.
And this
It's a
thing disappeared and
wonderful
never bothered me
example. That's
again.
a fantastic example of, when we ask, God sends. And so your relative was probably given permission at
Right,
that
by me
moment,
asking.
instantaneously, to
That's what
help
it was
you.
like. The moment I
Yes.
said it, right as it threw me down, as I
Yep.
said, like it's yeah, I got mad and
Please,
threw me
please,
down.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And I
And you
wasn't
know
like
when
yelling it. I was all in here because I couldn't talk. The scene had me
right.
paralyzed
You can't
as
often
it
cannot
threw
talk,
me.
and sometimes you cannot move. Some people sometimes even have trouble breathing. And so you're
Yeah.
trying to shout out, Lord, Lord Jesus, help me, or God, help me. You can't even get an utterance or a whisper. You're completely held. And
Like
so
it
it is
knows it's trying to
the
stop you from
power
doing it.
of that thought, the power
Yeah.
of the thought that you push forward, and that was instantaneous. And so it's a wonderful, fantastic example of how that happens. But it happens even in the lower realms. And King David in the Psalms wrote about this. He said, "In heaven, Lord, you are there, but even in the deepest hell, you are still there." And so this is true. This is very true. We see that God is working in all realms of existence. We are all projects in working order. We're moving forward. Hopefully, that's what we hope to do, is continue moving in a forward motion direction. But God is moving in all of creation
God
for
never gives up on
all
you.
life, for all life. Yes,
The
that's
basic premise that
absolutely
I've
true.
understood is God, the God I would think or believe in, that I feel deep down my soul, is God never gives up on you.
Right.
No
That's
matter your
how it is.
atrocities, no matter how bad you've done in
Right.
life or or in hell, whatever, that God never gives up on you.
Well,
Uh,
there
'Cause would
are
you give up on your child? That's how
nope.
I always look at it. I would never, even if my son became a mass murderer, as horrible that it is, there's always going to be a part of me that's not going to give up on him. That's going to
Right.
love him and try to understand why he is that way, and help him in any way I could. As horrible as their atrocities, my love for my child is endless. I would not cover up their crimes or let them commit crimes. I'm not saying that. Some parents would, and some parents do. I wouldn't do that. I'm not going to bury the bodies for my mass murder of serial child. My wife's listening, going, "What the hell?" You know, but I'm just saying that my love is endless for my child. I will always be there, and that's how. If you're a creator and you have made this creation, that is us. That's love. That creation is love, and you don't give up on it.
Right. And one of the things that people do misunderestimate about God is the endless mercy, that there is an instantaneous, an instantaneous shedding of the mercy of God. And that, no matter where we may be, that literally in an instant, a split second, we can make a different choice and completely turn the direction in the other way. So even if we are traveling backwards, if we're going in a darker direction, we can just stop and say, wait a minute, I have changed my mind. Lord, help me. And all of a sudden you're turned and you're going to receive that assistance to help you to fix and purify and rectify whatever damage you may have done to yourself or others. But you're going to be given that grace and assistance. People underestimate that it really can be that simple. And it's like, no matter where you are at, it doesn't take away the fact that there are consequences for our actions and stuff. You may still have to deal with those, but you can still change it in an instant. You can change who you serve in an instant.
That's so important for, I think, people to understand. I mean, in a time where a lot of people are losing hope too.
Yes.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
about the future, and things could change on a dime. Things can change for the better. They can change for the worse. I'm the pessimist side, but I'm just saying, it takes, I just recently said, in this world, the best thing we can do is, my favorite philosophers in a sense is Thich Nhat Hanh. He wrote a
Oh, I
book,
love
Peace is Every Step.
him. I love
Yeah,
him. I have a bunch
yeah,
of his books. I have a
yeah.
whole section of his books. I
My
love
mom let me have. I started getting it because my mom got into Buddhism, and I
him.
really loved his work. Old
He did a
Path, White
beautiful
Clouds,
biography of the Buddha called Old
right? Old
Path,
Path,
White
White
Clouds.
Clouds. That's one of my
Mhm.
all-time favorite books.
But I do think
That's,
that Thich Nhat Hanh is one of the best teachers on mindfulness and
yeah.
on mindfulness meditation. He even teaches the walking meditation and the different types of
He
ways
passed away.
that you can implement those. And I actually recommend Thich Nhat Hanh to a lot of my readers for that, because one of the things I highly recommend is these deep and long meditational periods. And these are our practice times of meditation. And they always want to know, well, what kind of meditation? And it's mindfulness. And it's like, if you don't understand what that is, start with Thich Nhat Hanh, because he is truly
He's one of my
probably the
favorite
best
authors on the
teacher.
subject. But
Well,
Old
he's
Pathway
a
Clouds,
master. He's
yeah,
a
Old
total
Pathway
master.
Clouds is, if you've never understood Buddhism or gotten into it, it's a long, big book, but it's one of my favorites.
Beautiful.
It's one of my favorites. It's a beautiful, beautiful book, but a really small book to start out with is Peace is Every Step.
Peace is Every Step. Yes.
And I preach this to everybody because it's the golden rule. But really, I say this repeatedly and more since 2020 and now 2021. I say really repeatedly, everybody's talking about crazy things and everything's nuts. It's like, there's nothing you can do about what's happening in the world right now. I've tried to tell this to my stepdad, who, gets really upset about things. I said, all you can do, if you don't like the political thing, go vote, do what you did it. That's all you can do. Otherwise, chill out. And this is what I tell people. You want peace in your life. And this goes more towards people that have a lot of drama in their life. I tell this one too. If you want peace in your life, then you have to make the steps for it. You can't just wait for other people to do it. Okay.
But here's something I'd like to add to that about Thich Nhat Hanh. I think that his history is really important because he is a Vietnamese Buddhist monk, and he was in Vietnam during the time of the wars. And he, experienced watching many of the Buddhist monks being murdered and literally decimated. He saw his country decimated. He had to go in exile to Australia. And so Thich Nhat Hanh speaks from this personal experience of extreme suffering that makes his wisdom all the more relevant to all of us at all times. He's not just someone who has a philosophy. He has lived that philosophy, and through a very difficult period that he had to overcome is where Peace is Every Step comes from. And so it comes from this deep place of experience
where things were, like I said, out of his control on a large perspective. He wasn't going to change how those things were. He can only do what he can do in his personal life, with his actions,
and sometimes the most transformative realizations and visions come from great suffering. And you have some of the greatest saints and mystics and teachers and masters. And Thich Nhat Hanh, of course, is a master. He's a teacher as well, but he is a master, and he is a beautiful, beautiful soul. I adore Thich Nhat Hanh.
Me too. An interesting note. One of the reasons I've even now just really came to me thinking about it, why I've always resonated with him so much, and I loved his work, is I had you talk about past lives. One of my two visions of a past life both came into me in dreams, but they were so intense that I know they were real. Like, it was just that real in the dreams, that emotional. One of them, I think I was a Vietnamese Buddhist monk, because of what I was wearing and what happened. And they basically raided our temple because I ratted out the temple's, I don't know what you would call him, head guru, basically. One of the leaders of the temple was an opium addict. Okay. And I ratted him out, and these soldiers came with guns, and instead of just taking him away, they just started killing everybody in the temple.
Yes. And that happened a lot.
That dream ended with me running for my life through the jungles, and being face down right at the last second with a guy pointing a gun at me. And that's where I woke up, like just sweating, like I just got shot in the chest is what I felt like. And that stuck with me.
It's very fascinating too, from the standpoint that then Thich Nhat Hanh's work is all the more relevant to you personally, because you have a similar and same experience in the same place.
I never thought about that until just now, really, about that connection. That I've always loved his work, and then I've known about this vision for years, never connected the two. But he
he also did a beautiful series, and I'm not sure what it's available on now, but I used to have it on VHS, but Buddhism and Psychotherapy. It was a very lengthy 4 or 8 part series where and
Really?
this is beautiful, where he's
Yeah.
teaching how you bring that into your life. And, from all the things that he uh, has from the wisdom side, but also from understanding psychology. It's masterful, and it's something I think, frankly, you might really find
Yeah, definitely. I'd
helpful.
definitely like to read more by him.
Frankly, everyone would find it helpful,
Yeah.
because of the fact that it is very transformative teaching on how to actually bring the teachings into your actual daily life, the things that happen to us. And that's a big part of, what the purification journey is for all of us. And so the way that he brings that in so that we can make it relevant to our daily existence is extremely important. So that's something that I'm sure it's available somewhere, either
Oh yeah.
downloaded or now on DVD. But yeah, it used to be on VHS.
Just don't
And
buy it from Amazon. But I remember talking about this before. You've talked about one of the keys to getting people, and we're going to get it. We're coming up on a commercial break here soon, and we'll
Sure.
probably cover this when we come back from commercial break more in detail. But
Okay.
one of the first steps to learning how to out of body travel, I know you remember talking about, is mindfulness.
Oh
Learning how
yeah,
to
mindfulness
quiet
is
the mind.
the mindfulness meditation, because the practice of learning to meditate for a long enough period of time, and I recommend the 3 hours. And part of this is because the consciousness, the level of depth of consciousness that's required to actually begin the separation and the vibration state that separates the soul from the body is very deep. And so it is a big part of the practice. So there's the long meditations. There's things that we recommend in regards to prayer, but also spiritual reading is something that most of the saints and the great masters have recommended as a daily practice, because it is literally, it's the food of the soul. So it helps to keep people grounded and going in the right direction. A lot of solitude and silence is also something of necessity. That's something that's a little harder to get people to do these days, but you want to turn those
Yeah, my
devices
house.
off and really go back to pre-internet days where we could actually be in the quiet, because this is where God can descend. He can speak, but it's also the vibration comes down. And this is where the elevation begins. It's the practices. The practices are not the truth, they are the path to the truth. And so these practices help to bring us to that place where an out of body experience becomes more likely or imminent. And, I have a couple of books I recommend to newbies, people who are just starting out, which is Come to Wisdom's Door, How to Have an Out of Body Experience, and The Mysteries of the Redemption, a treatise on out of body travel and mysticism. And I also recently, about 4 months ago, released a little book called Astral Projection Made Easy, which provides you with the daily meditative focuses to assist you in reaching. It's a much smaller, simpler book. It's more of a devotional that helps you to reach that state. But you can download those books freely at outofbodytravel.org, along with all of the others. But that's a good place to start. Many of my readers, if they have spontaneous experiences that begin to happen when they start reading those things. And there is an element of it being energetically programmed into those books. It was something that was explained to me by the spiritual teachers and guides that led me in the writing. Hard to explain or understand completely, but it definitely has come to pass where we see that people start having it spontaneously, and then they begin to make that progress.
Well, maybe we'll go over a little bit of some of these steps. We're gonna go to commercial break because maybe
Sure.
some people can have some spontaneous out of body experience after the show tonight. Not during the show, people.
Good.
Don't do it during the
Sounds
show.
good.
Not recommended. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this commercial break, and we will open up the phone lines for you to call in and ask questions of our guest, Marilyn Hughes, founder of the Out of Body Travel Foundation. You can go to outofbodytravel.org to find a lot of these free resources and materials she provides there. Definitely check it out. But we'll be right back with a short commercial break.
He is conducting an experiment into the combined effects of sensory deprivation and hallucinatory drugs. The subject of the experiment is himself, and the experiment is out of control. Ken Russell's Altered States, a film that must not be missed, is in the West End now. Altered States, Certificate X.
Do you wish for more paranormal and spiritual content? The Paranormal Chronicles magazine is a free digital magazine crammed with the very best in paranormal and spiritual articles and features. No sign-up, no subscription, just free reading and knowledge for you. Read today at www.paranormalchronicles.com/magazine.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope.
That'll do. Hello, I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
The night is alive. Join us and take a walk on the weird side when you tune in to the Kingdom of Nye, hosted by Heather Wade, the finest in late night talk. Listen live free weeknights starting at 9 p.m. Pacific time at thekingdomofnye.com, talkstreamlive.com, and the Paranormal Radio app. Wanna take a ride?
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do voices from beyond the Cold Case Files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
Paranation Magazine is a new paranormal magazine based out of Denver, Colorado. Our goal isn't just to give you the best paranormal content out there, but to promote paranormal unity. We're doing this by giving everyone an opportunity to tell their stories and to share their experiences. For more information, follow us on Facebook at Paranation Magazine and soon, paranationmag.com.
I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is the extraordinary travels of a young, alone, and broke psychic in the highly anticipated new book from internationally renowned psychic, medium, medical intuitive, and best-selling author Sherry Dillard, Critics have described I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like as an engrossing memoir, an empowering story of how a broken girl came to accept her psychic gift. A refreshing and fun read, I've Never Met a Dead Person I Didn't Like is available through Amazon, Kindle, Barnes & Noble, and wherever books are sold.
Tired of school?
Who was Joan of Arc?
Noah's wife?
Like to travel?
Let's go back into history. Let's reach out and touch someone.
Want to meet people in the past?
Put them in the Iron Maiden. Iron Maiden? Excellent! Execute them. Otis.
Then hitch a ride with George Carlin, Keanu Reeves, and Alex Winter in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure from Orion Pictures.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Where you could accept the fact that this city is headed for a disaster of biblical proportion.
What do you mean, biblical?
What he means is Old Testament, Mr. Mayor. Real wrath of God type stuff.
Exactly.
Fire and brimstone coming down from the skies. Rivers and seas boiling.
40 years of darkness, earthquakes, volcanoes.
The dead rising from the grave. Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together. Mass hysteria.
You are listening to Paranormal Soup, bringing you the weird every Sunday night. Call into the show and join the discussion. The call-in lines are 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419 or by Skype caller ID OOJBlandOO or JBland Paranormal Soup. And now to your host, Jason Bland.
Tonight, we're talking to our guest, Marilyn Hughes, returning guest. We've had her on before, and it's excellent to have her back tonight. She is the founder of the Out of Body Travel Foundation. She also has numerous books out, but some of her newest ones is Dialogues with a Mystic 2 and The Lord of the Redemption. It's a third in the Redemption series. Those are some of her latest books. Her website is outofbodytravel.org. Lots of free information, lots of free resources there. Definitely check it out. And like Rob said there, the phone lines are open if you want to call in. You'll hear us talking if I do pick up on you, and just wait till I call on you. I'll call out your area code usually. Then we'll bring you on for the questions or even a statement. If I hang up on you, it's because I got somebody else online. So just try back. That's just how it works. I have limited phone lines here, but we'll give it a shot. Just try calling in. But let's go ahead and get to our guest. So I played a little Ghostbuster liner there. That's kind of, I play that on the show quite often, but that's kind of how I feel. Like I'm the person yelling, "This is gonna be raining cats and dogs," and like I'm not saying I'm believing in Revelation, like I said, or doomsday totally, but I feel like I am trying to tell people that things are gonna get real bad if we don't change something fast.
Yeah, that's true.
Or just the ultimate pessimist that I am. But now, like I said, I want to kind of give the is there a way we could help the audience tonight if they wanted to, like after the show tonight, do something to like maybe have one of those like experiences? I know you said like if they read the book there's a connective energy that helps, but is there something they could do tonight, maybe
Absolutely.
like to start them on that journey?
Starting even with a simple prayer before you go to sleep tonight, a prayer asking God to show you the truth regardless of whether it coincides with your own view of reality or not, is one of the ways that you open that gateway, because then you become capable of being taught and being instructed. So when you are willing to have your own perceptions and views challenged, when you really want the truth more than you want to be right, you're ready to be taught. And that's what will happen. And so you just start with that simple aspiration. Maybe consider, as you go to sleep, doing some type of meditation music, some type of, even like you can use Gregorian chants, you can use some of the other types of,
I
the
used to
different
love Gregorian
megahertz.
chants.
Yeah, and that's a really good thing, because the liturgy, and that's what these chants are. It's the liturgy. The liturgy is a very powerful prayer. I wrote about this in another book called The Primordial Seed, which is about this prayer that moves from heaven to earth in a circular motion, and that this is one of the secrets of experiencing out of body travel, by understanding that the liturgy is a very powerful prayer that helps us to actually enter into the prayer of the angels moving from heaven through earth. And that makes your field more open to out of body experiences as well. So, those types of sacred chants are excellent, but you can also use other types of chants. Personally, I love the Gayatri mantras, the Om Mani Padme Hum, all of the Eastern, the Buddhist, the Hindu, but there's also some beautiful Sufi chants, the Islamic mystics, and there's, the Jewish chants of, some of the great, beautiful prayers, which are also part of that liturgy, the Kaddish and some of these beautiful traditions, come from above in ways that a lot of people aren't aware of, and they do actually open those doors. So you put out the aspiration, you create a quiet, serene setting, you figure out what type of music or meditation. One of the things I also use that's very effective for me is the sounds of nature. So if you use the sound of a rainstorm, or
See, I go to sleep to the rain every night.
Yeah.
I do. I have a little app. I thought I'd quit after I had my basement flood so many times, and I actually fear the sound of rain. But it still is like my go-to is white noise at night, because I'm such a light sleeper. It really does relax me.
That's one thing that really works well. And I've done the rain, I've done the waterfall sounds, but there's also, there's a lot of I have a lot of these CDs that have like just the natural sounds of the birds and the desert or the mountains, the Rocky Mountain things, or different places. So there's the streams, there's the garden sounds, and so for some reason, and I think it has to do with our grounding in all life and nature around us, that really works for me. Other things are Tibetan bowls,
Oh yeah, I love those. I love the sound of that.
Yeah, and so you go ahead and you create this new ambiance. Another thing that I definitely do is the place that I do sleep, it's a cell for me. It's almost like the cell that a nun or a monk might have. And so I place around me things that are holy to me. So I have altars, and I have sacred geometry, and I have my holy books and texts that I read, and prayer books and things. But people create this energy around the place that you will be sleeping. And so what is sacred and holy to you personally, and you just create this, because what it does is it energetically actually does alter the space of the room, and it does help us. Also, I wrote some books about fragrance mysticism. So I use a lot of incense, a lot of essential oil type, what are those things called? Diffusers, and, the scented waxes. And so these kinds of things are very powerful in bringing about out of body experiences. One of the things that people don't realize about the scents is that in some of the higher mystical realms, you have these beautiful fragrances of roses and other things. And so what we're doing is we're kind of lifting ourselves up a little so that it becomes easier for this this disconnection from the physical body and the soul to then occur. We're just kind of lifting ourselves up. So the scent,
creating a bridge.
Yes, that's exactly what we're doing. And the solitariness the silence. All of us, benefit from, this alone time with God, the solitary path. And it's difficult, in different forms of life, in family life, and in various ways that people live. But we want to do what we can within the reality that we have, the life that we have, to create some space for this solitude with God, where you can literally talk to God as your closest friend. You want to have those dialogues, those communications where you're honest and you're real and you're authentic.
I do have those. I do. I do that all the time. I do that every day. And I'm not a Christian. I'm not I don't belong to any religion or church. I tell people I answer the census that I believe in Jediism, But I have some great questions in the chat room here, and I have two people hating online, so we need to get to these people. First caller in was Zach. We got Zach on the line. How you doing tonight, Zach?
I'm doing pretty good, brother. How you doing tonight?
Doing great. Thanks for calling in. You always have great questions.
Hi, Zach. Nice to meet you.
Hey, Marilyn. Good to see you. Just got two questions, but nice and short. So, Marilyn, you mentioned that there were multiple dimensions, each having like their own form of like purgatory and hell. So, my question to you is, do they all have the same like origin story that is described over in the Bible, or are there differences in how they were created? And can you be able to maybe use one example from your own experiences that you've encountered?
Well,
it's a lot there, Zach.
The Bible talks about the creation of this world, and it talks about the creation of the heavens in a more general sense. So what you experience in the mystical spheres is that you're going to see the expansion of what they referred to. So I can give you a lot of examples of the beautiful spaces. In some of the spheres, you're going to go into the realms of creation, and you'll meet people like the Assisi Marauders, who are a group of 5 men who fly on white-winged horses, and they energize creation in many worlds, not just ours, in many worlds. You'll go to places where you will see crystal cities, and in other locations there are cities of light. There is a city of the New Jerusalem that is referred to in the Bible that is beautiful, and the roads and the buildings and all that, they're made with emeralds, pearls, and gold and all the precious gemstones, and it's a beautiful place. And this is the place where the Palace of Ancient Knowledge resides, which is the library of the ancient sacred texts that are all preserved in heaven, that come from all traditions, not just Christian, they're from everywhere. So, even we talk about losing the Alexandrian library. In the Palace of Ancient Knowledge, it's preserved there perfectly. All knowledge that has come from our world is preserved there. There are other libraries that actually have what I would call galactic ancient sacred texts, because we're not the only world. And so these are ancient sacred texts that exist for those who reside in higher spheres, and also come from other extraterrestrial worlds or interdimensional worlds. You'll see places where the golden angels are in the 23rd dimension, and these are these luminescent, beautiful creatures that emanate this complete and utter peace, tranquility, solitude, and they're crystalline. They're golden, but they are crystalline. And when you just look upon them, you experience a bliss and an ecstasy and a peace in that is indescribable. There are many of these temples in the sky, and they come in all forms. So it's all the things that we know on earth, all our religious institutions and things like that, but it's much more, because in the heavens there are more of these. There are places where you have angelic beings who take ancient sacred texts and create music from them, and you hear this angelic choir and the music of the spheres. There are many places that you will go where you will meet with spiritual teachers of a variety of areas of knowledge. So you may meet with, I'll just say from my own experience, one of my first teachers was a spiritual guide by the name of Emmanuel. And he wore a robe and he had the dark hair. It was short, but he had the beard, and he was not Jesus. He called himself Emmanuel. He taught me about oneness, but then he handed me off to the next master whose name was Kutahe. And Kutahe had to teach me about discernment, which was a process that then continued to follow. I started learning from the medicine women from throughout the ages, who their energy, when you're in their presence, it's the spirit of all the medicine women from throughout the ages. And you experience the same thing. And I experienced the same thing with the Dalai Lamas when I was taken to this beautiful golden gilded ovular casket. And this was something that was considered a great honor. There was a guardian before it that had to give me passage to touch this casket. And when you touch it, all the wisdom and the energy of all the Dalai Lamas comes through, and you are literally cast to your knees. When you see our Lord Jesus, who is in a very high place, he is what he said he was, you are literally cast many times to your knees, or often to the ground, because of his holy majesty. I've had many beautiful opportunities to see the Blessed Mother and many saints, and they instruct you and guide you and teach you. Had many experiences with what they called themselves the Buffalo Women, but they were also some type of shamanic group from the past. All the spiritual traditions of our entire world have elements of energy that are beneficial for us to attain as human beings in this incarnation. There's knowledge within them that is of great value to us. So you can go to crystal forests where the trees are made of rose quartz leaves, the water is golden, and everything, the grass is some type of green emerald. You have the plants are all these precious gemstones and crystals. It's beautiful. And anything that you touch, you are filled with this vibration because they emanate this higher existence. When you enter into the initiations, into the mysteries, you will often be taken into the mysteries that are actually performed in the pyramids of Egypt, the mysteries of the Sphinx. And you'll go through many ritual passages through the knowledge that is to be attained from those mysteries and from many of the others, the Eleusinians, the Greek mysteries, and all of the other paths which are encompassed within all of that. You also will be taken eventually, if you are traveling in the correct way, to meet with the angel of the ascension, who, in contrast to the angel of death, who wears all black robes and has, skull for his face and bones for his hands, the angel of ascension is in a robe of all light that glistens with the light of God. And the angel of ascension's face and hands are pure light. But the angel of ascension comes when we have attained to the ascension from this realm, because then we are no longer under the laws of death and dying. So when we do die in this realm, we will be ascending to a different sphere than we would had we not achieved that level in the initiations. There are so many things. You'll be taken forward and backward through time to extremely important moments in either religious or spiritual history, whether it's the crucifixion or salvation history. or hovering in the heavens with the Buddha and experiencing wonderment, tranquility, and grace, and taking in the vibration of what that is. There is an endless supply of, and that's why there's so many books.
I would say Zach had a very big question, with a lot of a lot of questions in there, and boy, did you give even bigger answers. That answer for you, Zach?
That definitely does answer it.
I hope it answered. So that's a lot.
Yeah, if you want to
could have just told you 42. But.
Zach, if you want to know more, start with the Mysteries of the Redemption, and the books go in sequence, and you will learn very quickly how much is out there and how what there is to discover and experience. It's a beautiful, beautiful journey.
Well, thank you, Zach, for calling in, bud.
Yeah, nice to talk to you, Zach. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Marilyn, for answering my questions. And before I go, here's my sounds that I actually listen to when I go to sleep. I listen to the Joe Rogan Experience. There's nothing more strange than listening to Alex yelling at Eddie Bravo.
Oh,
I gotta say, that's really funny, and I like that too. I mean, I won't use it when I go to sleep, but that's funny.
The only time I ever listened to a talk show going to sleep, and sometimes it was a bad idea because it would keep me up, is Art Bell or Heather Way. And that sometimes is a mistake. That's a mistake. So don't recommend that because it will keep you. Their shows, old reruns of Art Bell, even will keep you up. Something interesting.
I don't do that anymore. But yeah, in the early '90s and before that, yes, that was.
And then I do it with. I was doing it with Heather, but I had to stop because Heather, you keep me up. You got. I gotta shut it down, or I'm not gonna get any sleep. Well, thank you, Zach. You have a great night.
Hey, we all saw,
all right.
We all saw what happened to me last time we did a meditation in the show.
Oh yeah, second time I've had somebody fall asleep on the show. Rob got that honor. Second time. We got somebody else waiting on the line. I want to get to here. I don't see the area code. We got somebody on the line here. It doesn't just says I got a call. Who do we got on the line? Do you hear me?
Yes, this is Tyler. Hey, Rob, Jamie, Jason.
What's up?
Hey, Tyler.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year. 10 days in.
Yeah, I know. I just haven't talked to you guys in a long time. It's been a crazy year already.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, we know that because of your show. You covered a lot. And I was sitting on the line, and yeah, there was a lot of answers I had, and she filled them. You guys know my sleeping patterns where I talk in my sleep all the time, and I feel like I asked her. And I feel like I go out of body experiences, and but I can't stop the negative. I want those to stop, and I try surrounding myself with Bible. I read literature. I stay entwined, and I learned in my sleep too to break myself out of it. But one of my biggest fears is spiders, and I even tried medication on it, and that made it worse for me. And then after, I seen a big spider in front of my face when my mom was in the other room, and she came in and she's like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, "There's a spider. I don't know where it went."
Well, the spider is. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I was just saying. So I don't know.
Let's get a revise.
The spiders are very common. And they are always signs of some type of defilement or contamination. And so when you see the spiders, you want to be doing some deep self-reflection and prayer to see if you can identify where that might be coming from and how you can purify it. So therefore you can extricate it. The negative part of it is always there. And there is a great deal of spiritual warfare that people have to learn when they are undergoing this. I do have a book in the Mystic Knowledge series called Spiritual Warfare, Angels and Demons. And I also have another one called Ghosts and Lost Souls. And if you go directly to those two books, start with Spiritual Warfare and then follow with Ghosts and Lost Souls, I think that is going to give you a much quicker education on how these dark things work and what you actually have to do to overcome them, because this is part of that purification, so we go through the spiritual warfare, we see the defilements, the contaminations that are around all of us, and we have to then do the diligence, which is trying to discern and discover what those contaminations are. And those are usually related to, the 7 deadly sins, the vices. And so you want to look at what vices these particular creatures might be being drawn in by. And, it's really important to know that all of us go through that. Every single one of us. And, I totally understand the aversion to the spiders in particular. Another thing you can do, which you can do right away, people don't realize that sacramental objects do help with this sort of thing. I had a period when I was having the tarantulas and I was undergoing purification. And when I would hold a rosary in my hand, they could not enter, they could not come close. And so things like putting up crucifixes over your bed, holding a rosary, even wearing, a crucifix. This is a Benedictine crucifix, which is specifically for spiritual warfare. It is the Saint Benedict, which is the exorcism. And so you utilize sacramentals in this way. You can also go to any Catholic church and get holy water. And then you want to bless your bed and bless yourself in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. And it's important to realize as well, this is not about whether or not you are Christian or Catholic. When I wasn't Catholic, when I started having mystical experiences, I became Catholic because my mystical experiences showed that to me in terms of what really worked when it came down to spiritual warfare. So you can do these things and not worry about whether or not that's your personal thing, and just, put your faith in God in that, because these things do have spiritual, efficacy that is hard for us to understand, but we definitely see it in a very powerful way in the mystical spheres.
I mean, when these were really powerful at one time, I was having really bad dreams, and I even went up to a deacon, and he just looked at me weird. I was like, "Man, I need your help. I don't even want to go in that booth to talk to you. Do I have to go in there to talk to you? I'm not Catholic, dude.
Right.
Can you show me how to do this?" And I don't know. I was just kind of brushed off.
Well,
that's why I've always been quiet about all this.
You don't need to be quiet about it, because one of the things just to keep in mind is, different priests and different deacons have their own level of experience. So some are extremely helpful and some are not, so that happens. But when you say you're having these really, really bad nightmares, do you feel comfortable just sharing with me, a little bit of what they are? Because that might help me to help you to discern what this is leading you towards, what it is trying to tell you.
Like the best way I can explain it is I'll be talking to these entities or whatever they are. They'll start getting really aggressive with me. Okay. And I'm like, hey, I don't understand. And then sometimes I'll fight. I'll even kick them away. I've woken up to one sitting right next to me, and it would not talk, and I was screaming and screaming, and it just disappeared eventually. It's like my eyes were starting to focus into, coming back from the dream state, wherever I was.
So one of the things you want to consider adding here is what you're dealing with there. It sounds like a variety of entities and spirits. Many of them could be just simple ghosts. Some could be lost souls. Some could be wandering spirits. The thing to understand about those three things is that these are confused spirits who very often have a lot of contamination, and they have bad intentions at times. Sometimes they're aware of it, sometimes they're not. So it can be anywhere from someone who's just ignorantly doing or participating in something dark to someone who's actually really dominant in their darkness. So what you want to do in the out-of-body travel state, we require to give God the dominion. And what that means is that we understand that God has the ultimate authority over what is actually going to be beneficial to us and what is not. So when you see these souls, you can ask them, are you here on behalf of Almighty God? Or are you here on behalf of our Lord Jesus Christ? Did God send you? And it's obvious from what you're saying that none of these beings can stand to that. And then you need to cast them out. You say, in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, I demand that you leave. And you can also say, I cast you out in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, or in the name of Almighty God. And so what you want to surround yourself with is this understanding that you do not want to interact with lost souls, wandering spirits, or just random entities on the astral plane. And it sounds like, from what you're saying, you just have a natural propensity to be sensitive and aware. And so you're kind of being messed with because of that, because it's a natural gift that is coming to you. But what's happening right now is it's not being properly cultivated, and you are just being played with, toyed with, and, you know, maybe even a little bit worse, because we're just talking about these astral entities, and you could also be dealing with some demonic ones, which is why I really think you'd benefit from those two books, Spiritual Warfare, Angels and Demons, and Ghosts and Lost Souls. I think from what you're describing, you've got a lot of these wandering spirits, and none of them have anything to tell you of any value. This is one of the things that's so important for people to understand. You know, people don't become enlightened because they die. So when a person dies, they're just, you know.
I think I'm preparing for death more so, you know, if that makes sense.
No.
Well,
I'm preparing myself more for, like, I don't know if that makes sense, when, like, because I'm able to do this, I feel like I'm more, like, able to connect with the spirit world, because, like, I'm not going to die anytime soon, but I'm preparing myself, if that makes sense.
Well, that
I'm
makes
okay with
sense.
it.
But at this, yeah, that's true, because in a lot of respects, part of the spiritual journey is that we're coming to peace with our mortal nature, and we do prepare for death. But at the same time, it's important for you to understand that you are a living soul, and you have things you need to accomplish here in this incarnation, and don't be pushing it along, or let any of these wandering souls, spirits, entities, or whatever tell you otherwise, because this is where we go back. They have nothing to tell you. There's nothing they can tell you that's of any value. So anytime you're just trying to talk to someone just because they're dead, it's as pointless as talking to someone on the street who has no knowledge or wisdom to share. What you want to do is start focusing your journey towards that which is of a higher thrust. And so you have to start out by understanding that any of these spirits that are there doing these things have no value. So you want to cast them out. You've got to get them out of there. You have to order them out in the name of Almighty God, that they have no dominion with you, because you are choosing to serve God only. And if they have not been sent by him, then they have nothing to tell you. There's no value in communicating with them. And you might even feel a little bit when you do that, like, oh, they're all gone. I'm kind of lonely. This is a bummer. But what you need to realize is that vacancy that you are creating is creating the fertile ground where a greater type of encounter that will have purpose and will come from God you're making room for that. Right now, they're just like crowding around you and blocking you from having anything of real significance. And, you know, you can continue, as you're reading those, to do the other books I mentioned, like the Mysteries of the Redemption, is going to take you through this understanding and evolution and help you to focus this natural gift you have. And some of us have a natural gift, and we kind of have to deal with that, because you could say, gee, I don't want to see that anymore, but you still probably will, because you're just naturally sensitive, right? And so
Right. And then again, I'm okay with it. But at the same time, nobody around me, other than my mom, she understands. Nobody else, they don't understand. One thing I need to stop doing is waking up mad. I wake up mad for some reason, and I think it's a lot because I'm getting interrupted. But because there's a lot of information coming at me.
And it's irrelevant information. What it's doing is it's literally bombarding you with negativity and stuff. And so it actually makes sense that you wake up angry, because they literally are just simply messing with you. And so, and the spiders are the indication of the contamination and the defilement. What is contamination and defilement? It has to do with whatever we might have that we don't recognize. So whether we are struggling with lust or greed or vanity or something like this, sometimes it can be gossip and slander. So whatever it is, we want to start discerning that. And one of the things I also ask people to do is to consider at some point, when they feel ready, to start with some of the texts on mystical theology, because mystical theology is the science of the soul, and it is the hallmark of this purification process. And when you are ready to start that, what it does is it takes you through every aspect of this purification so that you can better understand and identify those things that might be giving room to these contaminations and defilements. And it's very disturbing when they're happening. But one thing you definitely would want to also throw out is a prayer asking God to reveal to you, what is it that I am doing that is allowing entry to the spiders, because we know that those are coming from the dark side. And then you also have, if there's anything that you might be doing that's allowing these wandering souls near you, you would also ask for guidance on that. What often happens with these ghosts, lost souls, and wandering spirits is it's just by the very nature of the fact that you're sensitive and open, and that you have not begun cultivating that. It's like anything else. If you have a gift to play the piano, then you want to cultivate it. You learn how to play chords and scales and stuff. You cultivate it so that it becomes a refined manifestation. Your spiritual life is exactly the same, where you want to begin that cultivation. And that's where we actually do the self-examination, the examination of the soul, and mystical theology really just walks you through it. But you'll start that with the Mysteries of the Redemption. But I do think that with what you're facing, I would start with those two books, because they will go directly to this initial problem that you're having. And then you can go back and then start this cultivation, which will come of its own accord as you continue the study. Because we do have to study the spiritual life. Sometimes we don't realize that the spiritual life is not just whatever any of us want to think. We do have to study, we have to cultivate, we have to refine. And the actual spiritual life is a continuing transformation, which means what I understood to be true after my first out-of-body experience 34 years ago is completely altered and transformed by thousands of experiences which have taken that understanding to a higher level. So we will continually learn more and more and take higher and higher steps. And that means our views will change, the way that we look at things will change. We will learn the discernment process, which is how do we understand what is serving our soul and what is actually not serving our soul, taking us backwards. And then we become able to accelerate the path because we identify something that is really like a real hindrance to our progress. And that gives us the opportunity to literally shoot for the stars. And so, what you're describing is just a great question, because I am almost certain there are probably hundreds or thousands of other people out there who are experiencing the very exact same thing. So it's very helpful.
I saw people commenting in the chat room about astral spiders and what you're talking about here. I started thinking, I wonder if Ray Bradbury ever went through that, because I'm a big fan of Ray Bradbury, and Something Wicked This Way Comes. It's like filled with all the spider imagery and these spiders crawling in the windows and walls. And and I had this one freaky experience was when I was a little kid where I saw all these like spiders and bugs crawling up a wall at this house once, in the middle of the night I was staying at. It makes me think about that. So never had arachnophobia, but about ready to give it to me. So thanks for calling in, Tyler.
Yeah, it was nice talking
from that. That's how you know I got arachnophobia.
It would be actual snakes. Snakes would be the worst, though. But thank you, Tyler. You have a great night, bud.
I'm definitely
Thank you. Answer my question so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you, Tyler, for calling in. I think you helped a lot of people, frankly. So thank you for that.
Thanks for letting me be open about it. I love you guys. Have a good night.
You too, Tyler.
You too.
I had somebody else trying to call in, and it was like calling in on the same line. I don't know if it'll let me. Oh, now it says incoming call. I don't know if it'll let me take that. I had another person trying to call in. I'm trying to see if it'll. I have to cancel that. It likes to do this split thing on my phones. Like, talk about weird. Oh, no, that was Tyler.
Or wait, on that, we had another question in the chat room.
Yeah, please.
Somebody asked. It's
trying to get to those too.
Said, while she's acting as a helper in the in-between, is her physical body being affected negatively, or does she not notice any health issues from the separation of her physical form?
It's a very good question too. That's a complicated question to ask, because what happens is, if you are just remaining in the realms of light, ironically, you're going to experience a lot of the healing, a lot of the beneficial types of things. But absolutely, yes, because I was called into spiritual warfare, and I was called in to deal with some of the things that do come from lower spheres. You do have to be aware that it can affect you physically. I did have a pretty profound demonic attack. It was a swarm of thousands of bees came right into my heart. It was 20, 30 years ago. I can't remember now. But I ended up with heart failure, and I do believe that there was a connection there. And I had heart failure and was very sick for, it started in 2001, and my heart actually had a medically impossible recovery just a couple years ago. And so what you have is you have a little bit of both, where you have, if you're involved in spiritual warfare, it can affect you physically, but you also have the other side of it where you are receiving all of this healing vibration. But this is one of the reasons as well that I also always tell people it's so important to do the work, the study, especially if you have any type of activity regarding spiritual warfare. And a lot of people will eventually do that, because what happens is we do get trained and we do receive certain protections. But when we fall outside of it, or when we just simply lose a battle, because sometimes people don't realize, these battles between principalities and powers are real battles. And so that means you can lose. And so you want to have as much backing from the Lord and as much cultivation, practice, because you do go through the training in the mystical spheres and you do receive that certain amount of protection. But there is that is a danger. It does happen. But there's also, a lot of people experience the other side of it, which is the healing side and the the constant attendance to the vibrations, which is very good for us in the physical body. So it's kind of a complex thing to answer. So yes, it can. But the way
you have a lot of complex answers, so that's the thing.
Sorry about
Yeah, I mean,
that.
you really no, but it's all right. I mean, you don't shy away from it. You get right, the nitty gritty. There's a lot. Like my brain's trying to absorb what you're saying. It's like a lot. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, and so but you're going to do the best when you actually follow how you are being trained in the mystical. And so this goes back to what I was telling Tyler about. We want to toss out all of the, just the random interference from the astral spheres and all those things, because those things don't help us or guide us in any way. But if you are called into spiritual warfare, you will be also called into training, and you can read about how that works in the Mysteries of the Redemption, because you do go through these processes. And it's funny because you said at the beginning, well, who wants to do that? And it's funny because part of the reason I laugh when you say that is because there were 2 periods where I was told, well, you're going to have to go into this dark side of it now. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. You know what I mean?
Let's go to the golden jeweled cities and, like chill out on the good vibes and stuff. Like, why did you want to go there?
Yeah. So you don't, it's not pleasant, but if you allow God to direct your path, which is going to be the most highly accelerated path. It's funny because people don't realize that, but you want to allow the will of God to move, because what we think we want to see or experience or do is so much smaller than what God actually might have in mind for us. So we want to let God direct and the will of God. And, for those who may not even be religious or have that view, it is a universal energy, that is directing that path forward. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It is like that. It is like that. Ironically, that whole concept of, the Force and the Padawan and the Jedi Master, in Dialogues with a Mystic too, I'm directing a soul forward towards their own out-of-body experiences. And we jokingly, the person we call Seeker would call me the Jedi Master, and he would call himself the Padawan.
If we ever work together, that's if you ever instruct me, that's how it's going to go. Just so you know, you're my Jedi Master, I'm the Padawan. I'll do that. I'm totally into that.
Yeah, and so there are aspects in that whole Star Wars world and cosmos that are actually accurate and correct in terms of the Force and the dark side. These are all elements that are actual reality in the spiritual world. But when you allow the will of God to direct your path, you're actually going to be accelerating. And so people sometimes are very hesitant in that, because it's like they don't realize that they're actually missing out on the greatest possible gold, which is, oh my goodness, I'm going to be accelerated. I'm going to not waste a bunch of time in all these dribbles and all these side paths and these things that I think I want to know. I'm going to let the universal mind, God, show me what I actually need to know, which is much greater than anything we can even think up. So we're making way for acceleration by doing this. It makes a huge difference in the spiritual path.
Well, that's the thing. I always make the Force comparison because of the idea of the will. Because in Star Wars, Star Wars fan here, the Jedi try to follow the will of the Force. The Force will, and that's what I feel like it is. There's this will that drives life and creation.
That's absolutely true. Yes.
And that's to me what I feel. I don't see. I've felt that down in my soul since my earliest memories. I never can accept religions.
It's a universal field of being, and all of us and all life and even inanimate life, believe it or not, is connected to that universal field of being. We discover in the out-of-body travel state, even things that seem inanimate like rocks and, things like that, that there is consciousness and we are all moving within
Native
that
Americans believe
field.
that. Native
Yeah.
Americans believe that very heavily, that inanimate objects have a will. I mean, think about haunted objects, carrying energy, or photographs carrying energy. I think everything, if consciousness is life and everything's connected, then inanimate objects are in the mix there too. And maybe one of the things we talked about, I think, I don't know if it was my last guess I had, is that are some of these realms that exist, or maybe what waits us on the other side is. It's kind of like the chicken and the egg question. And I do have somebody waiting on the phone line. I'll let them know, 860 area code. We will get to your call. We're going to go to commercial break, and her answers are long. So we want to take your call after the commercial break. So hang in there. I know you've been hanging in there. But that we kind of maybe, in a sense, create these afterlife worlds in a way. I mean, that are the foundations of these religions built their own little worlds and crystal cities, and what I'm saying, like there's a Jewish heaven and there's a Islamic heaven that's created just by the mass consciousness of those who believe in it.
Yes, that is true. There is a certain element of what we create, and there is also an element of what has been created, which is already in existence and continues to create, which comes from this universal field of being, also known as God. But that's the underwriting energy that flows through all of us as human beings and all life, all animals, all plants, the water, the trees, the grass, the fields, the mountains. And this universal field of being is what moves and continues to create. It's a wonder to see when you are given the privilege to experience like the throne room of God, where you see how this creative force moves and creates and builds. It's just a continual process. And this is something that helps people to also better understand light and dark, which is that which comes from God and this universal field is always creating new and beautiful things. And what is dark is destruction itself. So it's always destroying, tearing down, taking apart, whereas the light is the unity and the oneness. The darkness is the breaking apart, the disunity, separation, and the multiplicities that come from various forms of dislike, hatred, otherness. And
fear,
so you
anger,
can
these
learn
things lead to the dark side. That's what I'm saying. But that's what I'm saying. It's like even in a fictional religious universe, there's these spiritual merits that reflect in that. I'm saying these truths underline. Like you've studied all these religions. I can say I've studied all those religions you have, but I've looked into a lot, and it seems to be a universal truth to most of these religions is light and dark, and it's not like the heaven and hell kind of deal. It's more beyond that. It seems to be the balance of the universe or something. That's what Star Wars really gets at.
What people would benefit from understanding, and Emanuel Swedenborg wrote about this a great deal in the 16th or the 15th. He was in the 1600s, so I don't know if that's the 16th century, but he was also someone who had these experiences where he saw what happens to souls in the afterlife. We go where we're compatible. So when we cross over, we go where we're compatible. So we become that which we truly are deep within. So whatever facades we have on the surface, those fall away, and wherever we are compatible is where we reside. So if we have gone through purification processes and really tried and worked in the spiritual, we may be able to emanate towards some of the angelic realms and some of the higher spheres. But if we're stuck in lust, we're going to head in towards those souls that are in a similar manifestation of it. If it's greed or vanity or violence or avarice, something else, you're going to resonate to those places. And so
we gotta go to we're running in late here. We got to get to a commercial break. You know, basic simple truth of wherever you go, there you are. You're always there where you go. All right, guys, we'll be right back after the short commercial break. I got somebody waiting on hold, 860 area code. Hang on there. We will get to your questions. You see, she has a lot of information to get out, so I want to make sure you have enough time for her to answer. So we'll get to your call when we come back from this commercial break, and the phone lines will still be open. All right, guys, we'll be right back.
Intercepted the transmission of unknown origin.
Transmission? Out here?
SOS.
Human.
Unknown.
Alien. Certificate X. Exclusive engagement at the Odeon Leicester Square. Now.
Any systematized transmission indicating a possible intelligent origin must be investigated.
In space, no one can hear you scream.
If you are interested in discovering the truth about the paranormal and want to hear from leading researchers in the field, join Justin Brown on his 3 weekly shows named My Paranormal Soapbox, Necromancer Live Show, and the Supernatural Symposium, live on Facebook, YouTube, and InterfaceDiff.net.
This is an APAC studio presentation.
Hi, I'm Barry, owner-operator of Barry's Barometer Barn. Lately, I bet you've been lying awake at night asking yourself, how many barometers do I really need? Well, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we think you need more than one. Otherwise, we're going to go out of business. Remember, at Barry's Barometer Barn, we don't know the meaning of high-pressure sales. Come on, folks, buy another barometer. I'm trying to put my kids through college. I've got a family to support and a secret mistress who isn't cheap.
Visit Barry's Barometer Barn, 000 Storm Drive. Come on, folks, buy a barometer. I'm Barry's older brother, Larry, and every time one of you people walk past the store without coming in, Barry beats me.
This has been a presentation from Tim Morgan's APAC Studio. For more almost professional amateur comic studio content, visit the APAC YouTube channel. Search APAC 2002. That's APAC 2002 on YouTube.
When Alex Gardner is asleep, he has an extraordinary gift. The government wants it, the scientists want it, but to keep it may cost him his life. It might be better if Alex didn't sleep at all, but he cannot resist entering the dreamscape. Can you? See Dreamscape in the West End and all over London now. Certificate 15. It takes an extraordinary adventurer to enter the dreamscape.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Join us every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time for Weird Wednesday, the live stream, with your hosts Jamie, the Living Dead Girl, and Rob, the Phantom, where we'll talk about all things paranormal, including zodiac, astrology, tarot card and oracle card readings, live ghost boxing and spirit communication, where we'll do voices from beyond the cold case files. So we hope you join us live on Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday night at midnight Eastern Standard Time. We hope to see you there. Bye-bye.
night is alive. Join us and take a walk on the weird side when you tune in to the Kingdom of Nye, hosted by Heather Wade, the finest in late night talk. Listen live free weeknights starting at 9 p.m. Pacific time at thekingdomofnye.com, talkstreamlive.com, and the Paranormal Radio app. Wanna take a ride?
Since 1948, Fate Magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Heat 'em up. Do, re.
He gone.
Tonight, we're talking to our returning guest, Marilynn Hughes. Always so much information. She is the founder of the Out of Body Travel Foundation. And I know her answers might be, there's a lot there. There's a lot. Like my brain's trying to grasp everything she's trying to say because there's so much knowledge there that she's gained over the years of studying different religions and being able to travel out of her body and see realms that I've never seen. I would love to see, and it makes me want to discover how to do it. And she gave us some tips tonight. But if you really want to look into this, she has a great website, outofbodytravel.org. Outofbodytravel.org. Go there. She's got a lot of free information for you. You want to learn how to out-of-body travel, astral project. There's where you want to go. Check that out. She's got lots of books as well. She's been mentioning tonight that can help you. And she gave us a little kind of experiment tonight. Are you going to try after the show tonight to travel out your body? I don't know. Maybe I will. Give it a shot. I don't know. But also, if they ask, is there a danger? You always have to go to the dark side. You got to clear your space and make sure there's none other negative spirits. A lot of spiritual journeys here and dangers and stuff that could face us on the other side, maybe. I don't know. We'll get into that. We got somebody waiting on the phone line, though, we want to get to here. They've been waiting very patiently, so we're going to get to them. But we will open up the phone lines. They're still there. After this call, you can call in 219-230-4444 or 260-225-9419. Skype ID OOJBlandOO or JBland Paranormal Soup. But let's go ahead and get back to our guest. Well, Marilyn, you've been so wonderful with our phone callers tonight. We got another one waiting here for you. 860 area code. Who do we got?
Hello, Jason. This is Royal in Connecticut. How are you?
Hi, Royal. Thanks for calling in.
Hi, Royal.
Yeah, no problem. No problem at all. Hello, Jamie. Hello, Rob. Hello, Marilyn. Marilyn, first a statement, then a question. I've been having OBEs my entire life since I'm a little kid. And I can remember actually being about 4 or 5 years old when it started. And I would leave my body in the middle of the night, float through the apartment. I'd be up by the ceiling. I'd even sometimes go into the living room looking at my parents watching TV. So I got used to that. But then I also started to have a lot of astral projection, where when I hit my teens, I was able to actually set my intentions and go to a place before I went to sleep. I had one recently. When I say recently, I mean this one was within the last year or two. I had one where I set my intentions to go. I wanted to go to a beautiful beach. I just remember saying I didn't care where it was. I just wanted to go to one of the most beautiful beaches. I went to sleep, and when I came through, and when I say came through, when I appeared on the other side, there was a woman walking. She almost walked right into me. And I saw the shock on her face, and I said, "Excuse me." And she walked around me, and I looked back, and she was looking at me where did he come from? And I was wondering if you had ever experienced anything like that before. Because I could tell I scared her. I just appeared right in front of her, and I didn't
Like you're a
mean to.
living
I didn't know
ghost?
where I was going to come through.
Is this like the idea of like
I'm
a living
sorry?
ghost? Royal, is this like the idea of like a living ghost? Like you think you were like manifesting there?
That's
really
exactly
interesting.
how she looked at me. That is
Wow.
exactly how she looked at me. Like where, like I appeared, like I'm assuming right in front of her.
Wow.
Just out of nowhere, and that was the first time I ever had that type of an experience. I mean, she literally almost walked right into me, and I thought, wow, she saw me appear, and that made me a little nervous. But I was wondering if Marilyn ever experienced anything like that.
Oh yeah, that's very common, and it's either you were manifesting into a physical reality where this person actually was able to see you in your non-physical body, or you were manifesting into another spiritual sphere where this beach resided, and this spiritual being was able to see you come in, and it was unexpected, and so they were not expecting you to drop by, so to speak. So yes, that's very common, and this happens a lot with people who are traveling, excuse me, astrally, where they will have different experiences where certain people will see them, and sometimes people do not see them. Sometimes you'll also have the experience where like the people don't see you, but the dogs do, or the animals on site are like
My cat's going nuts up. My cat right now is going nuts upstairs, so I'm wondering if somebody's peeping in up there. I don't know. But she's seeing something.
Yeah, you can. That definitely happens a lot. So absolutely, that's
What I did notice was she was the only other person on the entire beach, which I found odd because this place is absolutely beautiful. And I did wonder if she was another spiritual being or. But I know I frightened her. Because I had disappeared right before.
It is more likely that it was a spiritual beach, and that, especially with there only being one person there, there might have been, that you both kind of projected there at the same time. And the fact that if she were an astral traveler as well, then she would also be more surprised because she's also kind of going through the same experience that you are. And that happens as well, because we run into other souls who are sometimes consciously astral, sometimes subconsciously astral, because we know that everyone experiences some level of out-of-body travel when they're sleeping, but we do have a great majority of people who are completely unconscious of it. But this is the time when the spirit world teaches us. So we're all having the experiences, but it kind of sounds like that's a very high probability too, that she was projecting into the same scene you were. And so she had a little bit more of the startle factor, because she too was kind of doing what you were doing.
On the other side of the coin, she probably is like, I ran into this guy and he was like totally startled. You know what I'm saying? Like, you both had the same exact experience because you were startled too.
Maybe, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Because we came, right in front of each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that definitely, ironically, could very well be. She may have had the very exciting.
Can I ask one more thing, Jason? Do we have time?
Yeah.
We have another
Go for
caller.
it. No, I don't. Go for it.
All right, real quickly. Earlier, Marilyn, you had mentioned we all know we have multiple realms, but you also mentioned multiple hells.
Yes.
And the thing that most intrigued me about that is you had mentioned vice hells, certain vice hells.
Yes.
Does that mean if a person, say, for example, in this life is an alcoholic, are they doomed to go to an alcoholic vice hell? And if so, how long would they be there?
I would not say that anyone should look at themselves as doomed, because we want to go back to the fact that anyone can change their path by a simple act of the will, that I turn back towards God. So alcoholism is something that is, it has, physical aspects as well as psychological aspects. And so the way that these realms work, it has a lot to do with the intention that people have, and how much control they have over what they're doing. So, you can have, and this is something that's covered in depth in the Mysteries of the Redemption, of understanding discernment between, someone who might be doing something out of ignorance versus someone who does it out of a desire to cause harm. It's a very different intention, and we are judged more by our intentions than by even the actual acts. So no one would be doomed, but there may very well be and would be special places, and these might be more in the purification realms, the purgatorial realms, where people who have certain addictions might go through some teaching and guidance and direction. In the afterlife experience, we rarely go to one place and just stay there forever. It's a series of purifications. So we'll spend some time in the first place we go. But a lot of people will eventually end up in almost like a camp-like environment with other souls who struggle with similar problems, where they will be given teaching and direction. And so a lot will depend in a case with someone who might have an alcoholism issue as to the intentions, but also what are their actions as an alcoholic? What have they done to overcome these issues? And really a lot too will also be determined by, what are the physical realities for this person. For instance, I've seen people who have gone into like a lower hell because they were very violent and they had these rage issues and stuff. And then I've seen also on the same coin, people who had very severe rage issues who were taken to a very different place because they had brain injury or they had post-traumatic stress from war or something like that. And so you have to remember that God is aware and understands much more than we even do, all of the factors that are involved in where we end up and what our issues and problems are. And the focus is always on rectification rather than retribution. So it's trying to assist that soul, but we will go where we're compatible. So a soul who has that issue will likely end up somewhere with other souls who share that same difficulty. And that's not a bad thing, because what will happen is that they will all be able to help one another, and they will all learn a great deal about their particular impediment and how they can remove that impediment. And then, what I see with souls, because in my books, and, the first book in the series that we were talking about, The Lord of the Redemption, is the one that's being released. The first book in that series is called The Limb of the Redemption, and it goes into the afterlife journey of souls, which is much more extensive than I think most people realize. It's not like, okay, you just end up here. It's literally, you're going to see this soul moving through changes over, 2-3 years as they are becoming aware of whatever it was that held them back in life, learning to overcome those things, removing the impediments, and learning new ways of action. And then we're moving forward. That's what we're doing. Because whether we're here in this world in a physical body or crossed over and deceased, we are still working on that purification. We are still working on the evolution of our soul. So death does not remove that process. It only accentuates it and brings it to the forefront. So we end up in many places, but they will all be things that are intended for the betterment of the soul. Now, the souls who end up in these lower hell realms are sometimes just in places because they love their vice more than they love God. And so they're not fun places to be, and they're not nice places to go to. But once a soul has an aspiration that I don't like this, I don't want to do this anymore, help me, God, it changes everything. It allows for assistance to come in from above, and that does happen. So there is another book by A. Farnese. It's from the 1800s. It's called A Wanderer in the Spirit Lands. It's a classic ancient text, and it's the journey of a soul who dies and goes through a variety of realms in the hells and then in the purgatories, and finally makes it all the way back to the heavenly spheres. And it's very accurately done. It was definitely a work that was brought through at that time through a very clear spiritual source. And it has a lot in there that really benefits, I think, those who might want to read that, if they want to understand how these kinds of things occur after life. It's because ironically the title, kind of just tells us a lot about what we all do. When we cross over, we are wandering in the spirit lands as well. So, but of course, we want to do what we can do to focus that journey so that we might be going to places that are, higher and offering more acceleration. We want to be going through the purification because that's what we're here for. That's what the reason for the recurrent incarnations is, that we're not getting that job done. Because once we do finish that, and ironically, this is what the Lord of the Redemption is about, is going from this human state to what is the next step in the spiritual evolution beyond this type of world, this type of third dimensional, fourth dimensional world. And that's where we're trying to go. We want to go to that place that the masters went to when they finished and left their last words behind. We want to go there. And so that's what the Lord of the Redemption is really about. But you can follow it through the series and really understand the journey of how do we do that? You know what I mean? How do we do that?
Right.
See why I held you over break? She had a lot to say, I knew.
She's fantastic. She is fantastic.
Well, thank you, Royal, for calling in.
Thank you.
No problem at all. Thank you so much for taking my call, Jason.
All right, man. You have a great night.
Royal.
Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you very much, Marilyn. Thank you.
Very welcome. Yes.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Well, it seems like a lot of what you're telling us tonight too about out of body travel, if I'm getting this right, is that it can take your soul, it can get you through a lot of the stuff you need to learn. Yeah. Otherwise, you're going to have to go through more in like incarnations or face in your own life later if you don't, but you can face it early by like traveling this kind of soul cleansing thing through the astral plane, I'm guessing is what I'm getting at.
Well, a lot of the purification and the cleansing occurs beyond the astral plane, because the astral plane itself is kind of a mirror realm of this earthly physical realm. So it contains a lot of contaminations. Yes. Yeah. And so what we do learn a lot initially in the astral realm, but we quickly pass beyond it, because in order to learn the things we need to know of the things that are higher, we have to go to those higher places, those higher worlds. And so we do go well beyond that to learn these things. And yes, what we are doing here is literally, out of body travel is like that little golden key. It gives us the entry to this door of understanding, okay, why am I here? Why did I incarnate again? And what do I do to prevent the need for further incarnation because I'm not completing the tasks of physical incarnation? Another mystic I would like to just mention, he lived from, I think it was 1901 or somewhere around there to 2002, Francisco Candido Javier. he wrote a series of books, but he wrote a lot of books, but not all of them have been translated into English yet. But he was profound, gifted man. And he wrote a book called No Solar, which was made into a film called Astral City. And this really, the books, there's a 12 volume series of books, which really details and explains how the reincarnation process works and what we are doing when we do that and why, and then the things that we have to go through after death. So the series of books is obviously better than the movie, but for anyone, I feel that the movie even is just beautiful. Yeah, it's called The Astral City.
It's a
he was
fiction
a Brazilian. He was no. This is
documentary.
He was a mystic, and he was a very prolific mystic. He's got like over 400 books, and we have maybe 20 or 25 or 30 that have been translated into English. He was Brazilian. He's very well known in Brazil, and they did this film in Brazil, and now they have it available with, I think it's English subtitles. I can't remember, but it might be dubbed over. But this film is very, very accurate and very well done to show people, what the general idea of what happens to, the most of us.
Well, is the film a documentary or is it a?
It's a feature film, and it's a feature film because what Francisco Candido Javier did in this first series of 12 books was he followed the story of a soul who had died by the name of Andre Luis, and so the movie follows his afterlife journey, and it shows him as he goes to the astral city and all the things that he has to do, what he has to unlearn, and the way that he earns the opportunities to go back and see his family, and how he has to learn to be benevolent and loving, and many of these things. And this is very, very helpful. And you can start with the film, but then consider reading the books because they're in much greater detail. And they're very instructive and helpful for all of us. It's literally, instruction manual for why did I incarnate here on Earth and what do I need to do to graduate. And so, he's just another one of these great mystics. One of the reasons I really, push the ancient sacred texts is that we don't realize how many souls that, may be forgotten to the masses have existed who really had profound gifts of giving us these keys. And that's what, Francisco Candido Javier, A. Farnese, and Thich Nhat Hanh, there are many of these great masters, and we want to bring them back to the forefront of human thinking, because this is ironically going back to where we started, talking about what's happening in our world. Right. This is how we actually address it, because it has to be addressed within the individual human soul. And so these ancient sacred texts, and some of these that we've talked about, are profoundly valuable to us in the path of the spirit, and understanding and being able to really accelerate. We underestimate the importance of this, of being able to accelerate this spiritual path, and being able to do that. And what does it mean for us individually, but what does it mean for the realm? Because the greatest gift that any of us can give to this realm is for us to do that work interiorly, because we change the field of universal being by doing so. And so these are the things that we want to remember. We do have the ability to create change. It's just not in the way that most people think.
Well, I pointed out way earlier in the show, peace is every step. But that's my third state. You want it, you got to take your own steps for it. I'll have to check out. You said the name of the movie is a Brazilian movie, Astral City.
Astral City. Yeah, and it's called
because
Nasolar because in Brazilian, Nasolar means astral
Astral
city.
City, right?
And so the actual book is called Nasolar, but that's the book that it's based on. But the books are translated into English.
I'd be
And they're
interested in the book. I always like the book better than the movie, but I'll tell you what, I mentioned on the show, some of my, it took me a long time to realize, wow, a lot of your favorite movies have to do with the afterlife. That's weird. I don't know why, but like, you know, when it comes to Beetlejuice, What Dreams May Come, Defending Your Life, like these are also my favorite movies. High Spirits, you know, like all these things, all have to do with the afterlife or ghosts or whatever. But a lot of times with the afterlife, what it's like on the other side. Ever since I was a kid, those have been some of my favorite movies. I don't know why. Maybe it's my morbid sense or curiosity, but I'll have to check that out.
Some
Astral
of us
City.
are kind of just naturally programmed that way, you know. So
Yeah, I'm
some of
always
us
wired
have
that way, is what I
that
say.
seeking gene, and we just kind of are drawn in that direction. And I can totally relate to that. You know, I mean, obviously, I was like that too from day one. So, and
Yeah, day one is what I always say.
relates to that because that's why we're all talking about it, because we're all kind of in that same boat where we are very drawn to those things of the spirit, you know, and that a lot of what we learn from the afterlife is extremely instructive to us in the embodied life. And that's one of the things that is definitely taught in the limb of the redemption, which is the first in the redemption series. But as you move through this series, the second book goes into this understanding of this grand discernment and the great the spiritual warfare of the individual soul to bring that which is of heaven to earth. And then you're moving into these higher and higher spheres, and the Lord of the Redemption takes you to where that is then capitalized. It's like this is where you become invisible. You become invisible. You cease. But this is where we reach that point where we now can commune with those who have gone before us and have understood what it was that we must do to complete the work of the embodied physical life so that we can then ascend into this higher experience and vibration, which is peace and beauty beyond words. But we try to capture it in words, but it's still beyond words.
Right. Well, you know, the closest thing I ever, you know, we're getting the end of the show here, but the closest thing I ever had to, I mean, I had out of body experiences that were terrifying because of the shadow person experience we talked through last time I had you on the show. But I had one that was like kind of intentional, I was doing a guided meditation CD, and I did have an experience where I was in this, like on this river, like small, I would say stream, like bank. And across the street, across like this kind of little river, little stream, was my grandfather who had passed away. And we didn't have we didn't have a very close relationship, but I felt him there. And it felt like he was trying to, impart his goodbyes to me that we didn't get to have. I had that one really, it was so weird. It was like, boom, I was there. Like it was real and it was beautiful. It was just immaculately beautiful place. And that's the closest thing I have. But I've thought about that experience a lot tonight. Talking like, was that out of body? Was I traveling to an astral realm? Because it was felt very real. It's the closest thing I can think of that I've had to, to relate to the experiences you've had, doing what you do.
The thing about that too is, he's letting you know not only the goodbyes, but he's also letting you know that he's there. And, one of the things that I wrote about in a book called Galactica, which follows the mysteries of the redemption, these wondrous experiences. And I had some more in the Lord of the Redemption that were very significant of, how present our ancestors are in our lives, people that we don't even know. And, so I had this wonderful journey where I was meeting these people that I didn't even know had lived, and learning that, not just our grandparents, our parents, but we got the great grandparents, the great great grandparents, we have this ancestral line that is deeply involved in our lives that many of us are completely unaware of. And it's a very beautiful thing because it unites the living and the dead in this mutual accord and this mutual goal of assisting one another. And, you know, we also can assist our ancestors with our prayers and our offerings of good intentions for them in their journey. But they are also doing much more than most of us would ever guess or realize towards helping us to achieve the purpose of our incarnation.
That's a whole other topic for a whole other show because we're at the end of this one.
Yeah.
I want to thank you, Marilyn, for coming back on the show. We definitely have to have you again because there's always so much to talk about. Again, people check out outofbodytravel.org. Any other last information or anything you want people to know or check out before we go?
Yeah, just check out, go to outofbodytravel.org. Our books are downloadable for free. We have a course of study you can take for free as well. Go to our YouTube channel. We have tons of video content. Consider becoming a member there where you can then participate in our live streams, and we do a lot of live teaching to help people with what's going on in their personal lives and stuff. So we just have a lot of great content in the written word, but also in the video now too. So make sure you go to the YouTube channel as well.
Well, thank you, Marilyn. That's it for the show, guys. We will be back next Sunday with a new guest, Erin Riley. Her book is Dirty Little Secret, Confessions of an Alien Contactee. Can't wait to talk about her experiences with meeting aliens. But it was great talking to you, Marilyn, and talking about the out-of-body experience tonight. All right, guys, we will be back next Sunday. Thank you to everybody who's been sharing the show. Now that I'm going to take us off of Twitter, it's harder for me to reach people. Not that I was doing much reach on Twitter, but anything you can do to help us out, share it out. You can share it on Twitter if you want. Let people know about Paranormal Soup. Thank you to everybody who does. Thank you to the Patrons who pay $2 a month to help support this show that does help pay the bills. Thank you so much for your donations. All right, guys, I will see you next week. Have a great night.